Hello, these are section 3.4 flip notes in our development unit. And in this section, we're learning all about cognitive development across the lifespan. Let's get right into it.
Our next stage theory is from Jean Piaget, probably one of the most well-known names when it comes to child psychology. He studied his own children for years, and then once his children grew up, he studied any children that he could find. He watched them at parks and at schools, but he was really fascinated with how children play because he said how they play is so much about how they learn. He did believe that children move from stage to stage as they were exposed to different relevant experiences, and that that's what shaped their development. So, this idea of development occurring in stages is called discontinuous development, that they have these very defined stages that have starting and stopping points, in contrast to continuous development, which is more incremental and just more gradual. But Piaget believed in discontinuous development. Piaget also said that our development is a result of our biological development along with the environment. That so much of what we know is because we've learned from mistakes. So Piaget would not have said these little kids right here are dumb for trying to slide on this itty bitty slide or trying to squeeze themselves into this miniature car. He said children just really think differently. And until they've had the experiences that they can learn from, they just don't know the same things that adults know who have had those experiences. All right, so with cognitive development, Piaget said that everybody develops schemas or mental molds in which we pour our experiences. So schemas are basically just concepts. Our schema for a ball, something that rolls. And we talked about this in the last chapter. A dog, something furry with four legs. Grandma, any older lady. And our schemas get more specific with experience. So we can think of schemas as file folders, and that we file things into the folders that they most accurately fit. Well, as we get older, we create more folders. So he calls this assimilation. When we come across something new, we have to blend it. We at first blend it into what we already have a schema for. So we've got a horse, we come across a zebra, it looks kind of like a horse. So we put the zebra into our horse schema. That's assimilation. But eventually, we start to realize there's differences between a horse and a zebra. And that becomes accommodation. We adapt our existing schema to incorporate new information. Another example, assimilation. Little kids think anything with four legs is a doggy. They've met their dog first. Now they see a cat, maybe a mouse, other dogs. They think all of those are doggies. They've blended them into their existing schema. That's assimilation. Accommodation is when they start to realize a dog and a cat are not the same. So they form an additional schema. So they become more specific with their current schema. A dog is anything with four legs and it barks. That's what makes it a doggy. So they have accommodated their existing schema. Piaget also identified different specific stages of cognitive development. So we'll look at each of these four stages. In the first, we call it sensory motor. They're experiencing the world primarily through their senses. Through looking at everything, through hearing, touching is really big, mouthing. They want to put everything in their mouth from 0 to 2 years old, and grasping. But this is really how they're using their senses to explore the world. Probably the biggest milestone within the sensory motor stage is reaching what's called object permanence. And that happens right around 9 months. Before object permanence, when something is out of sight, it does not exist in their mind to them anymore. They cannot picture it in their mind. But once they reach object permanence, people, objects, they continue to exist even if they can't see them anymore. So if you hide something from a 4-month-old, they're not going to try very hard to look for it because it doesn't exist to them anymore. But a 10-month-old, you hide it, they're going to look for it because they know that it continues to exist. Peekaboo is real exciting to little kids who haven't reached object permanence because when you cover your face, you completely disappeared. You did not exist anymore. And then when you reveal your face, oh my gosh, you're still here. That's very exciting to them. Our second stage is called the pre-operational stage, starting to use words and representing things with words and images, but they're more intuitive rather than logical. So one of the biggest things Piaget said about this stage was that children are egocentric, that they cannot perceive things from another's point of view. They can understand that my feelings can be different from their feelings. They think that everybody's feeling the same way that they are. And the way they can actually see something, like with their eyes, is how other people are seeing it as well. It's egocentric. So a child playing hide and go seek, they may just turn around and face the wall. They're not really hiding, but they can't see you, so they assume you can't see them. This example, when asked to show her picture to mommy, 2-year-old Gabriella holds the picture facing her own eyes. Mom can't see the picture, but Gabriella can see the picture, so she assumes mom can as well. She's egocentric. So Piaget said they're not selfish. It's not the same thing as being selfish. They just cannot perceive things from another point of view. We'll watch this classic video example in class with a little boy in the volcano. Another thing going on in the pre-operational stage is that children at this age lack the concept of conservation. They don't get that something can change its shape, but still keep its volume or quantity. So a 4-year-old doesn't understand that 8 ounces of Kool-Aid in a short, wide glass is the same as 8 ounces in a tall, skinny glass. So the classic way that this experiment is done is that they show the little kids the liquid in the 2 glasses, and it's the same amount. And they get them to acknowledge which one has more. They say they both have the same. Then in front of them, they pour the liquid from one glass into a taller, skinnier glass. And then they ask the kids which one has more, or do they have the same? And kids who have not reached conservation do not get that it's the same amount. They usually think it's the tall, skinny one because it just looks taller. So they can't understand that the volume has stayed the same even though it has changed shapes. They have not grasped conservation. The experiment shows that this works in other forms too, by numbers. If they take the quarters, or there's checkers here, and they spread them out, they think the top row has more. Or if they take balls of clay and they change the shape of the clay, they think the one that's in the ball has more clay. Or if they move the sticks, they think that that stick on the right is bigger. So they just cannot understand that things can change shape, but still conserve their quantity or their volume. Another thing that starts to happen during this pre-operational stage is theory of mind. So while they're still egocentric, they are starting to develop the ability to understand another person's mental state. We'll talk about the false belief problem, and we'll watch a video that goes with this one in class. Our third stage is the concrete operational stage from 7 to 11 years old. Kids usually reach this right around kind of the edge of kindergarten and first grade. It really varies. So at concrete operational, the big thing is now they understand conservation, that things can change shape and they conserve their quantity and their volume. The other thing is that they can understand reversibility. So for example, in math, 4 plus 8 equals 12. That also is the same as 12 minus 4 equals 8. So little kids who have not reached this stage, they're going to struggle with math problems. So that's why sometimes in first grade, kids who are just not developmentally there are going to be much more challenged by some of the math stuff that other kids seem to grasp very easily. It's just they're not developed at the same state. And then the final stage, according to Piaget, is the formal operational stage, which is where you are. It's where I am, from 12 to adulthood. And this one, the main trait is abstract reasoning, that kids can start to approach problems more systematically. They can rule out possibilities. They can, think of alternative and hypothetical ideas. Piaget said not everybody reaches this stage. Some people just don't ever get to where they can think more abstractly, but most of us do. Most, about 60% of adults do reach this stage.